Okay, and also on, so not only on life in the here and now, but on the ultimate goal of a world redeemed, right? A redeemed world, despite the evil and the suffering in our world. So while our holidays do acknowledge history, hopefully both as a people and in a personal way, they also serve to give us hope, right? So I wanted to read one brief. It's so funny teaching from home because I invite you all into the chaos of my of my apartment. What can you do? Okay, so Rabbi Michael Strassfeld had this just small comment, which I really like. He says, festivals act as lodging for travelers making their way through the year. These festival inns are special accommodations, not only for rest or for retreat.
Me, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're forgiven, whoever said that. So these festival inns, so to speak, or hotels, are special accommodations, not only for rest or retreat from the world, but also places to stop and take our bearings and make sure we're actually traveling and not going around in circles. So I thought that was a kind of nice short introduction. And I think we can begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to use breakout rooms, and oops, I forgot if we decided on an order. No, we didn't. Okay, so if you all printed out the hand.
You went mute.
Rabbi, you're muted.
That's odd. Okay. Do you remember from when I got muted?
You said if you have the handout.
Oh, awesome. Great. Okay, good. So we'll start with the holidays found in the prophets' writings and rabbinic literature. Then we'll go to Purim. Then we'll go to Hanukkah. And each breakout room will be around 12 minutes. We'll see if we need more or less. And then we'll come together and discuss. So there are a few things I want you to think about as you think about the holidays. And I'm going to chat, I'll type them into chat also. I can do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So as you look at each holiday, think about what historical event, if any, is commemorated.
You might jot these down somewhere so that when you go into the breakout room, you know what it is you're ready to discuss.
Yes, thank you. What values, what value or values, oops, does this holiday reinforce? And lastly, why observe it today, right? What does it mean to us today? And you may decide it doesn't mean anything, and that's okay. Okay.
Rabbi, could you put in the chat again what this first one that we're going to do, what we should be discussing in this first breakout room?
Oh,
which of the holidays? Okay,
so it would be, I'm just reading them from the lesson plan that got sent out. So Tu B'Shvat, and then Tzom Gedalia, the 10th of Tevet, the minor fast days, and 17th of Tammuz. Oops. And then the bigger fast day of Tisha B'Av.
I'm sorry, did you say this was sent out to us?
This is in the handouts that was sent out. These are the holidays that were in the handouts that were emailed out on the same email as Rabbi's bio and photo.
All right, if you're in a group that where somebody is missing some of the handouts, so everybody else maybe just read a little bit, not the whole handout, but selected parts, and just help each other a little bit. Okay. In the future, though, when Julia or whoever sends out information to you, make sure that if there are handouts on there, you're at least looking for the handouts, printing them out, reading them, having access to them. Okay. All right. Julia, you ready?
Okay, yep, I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms.
Oh, I got put in a room. Can I move myself around?
Yes,
I can co-host.
it wouldn't let, okay, let me make it, hold on a minute. Let me put this person in the room.
Okay.
Let me make you a co-host.
Okay. And then I can move myself around. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You should be able to do it anyway, but
I
that's
couldn't,
okay. You
yeah.
couldn't move.
I couldn't move.
Okay, so now if you go to breakout rooms, you should be able to pick which one you're joining.
Yes. Okay.
Ellen's in room 1, so
Okay,
they
great.
should
They should be fine.
be fine. And I usually just hang out here in case anybody else, like that person came on late to the.
Okay. That's good. That's actually really smart. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to room 2.
Okay. I am, but everybody's in a breakout room right now. All right, well, hold Marion, you came back from your room? Marion, I'm going to put you in a breakout room. Marion, are you trying to get back to your breakout room? Marion?
Did a lot of teaching in that one.
Mary and Tully asked for help, so I
Okay.
jumped in the room and so. Hi, Geraldine.
Hey, my sisters. How are you all
Hey.
doing? All right.
Good. Welcome back.
Okay, we're just waiting for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, it's slow.
Well, there was a minute left.
Oh,
It started the countdown, and so depending on whether people waited for the countdown or not.
It pulled me back.
Right.
Julia, it's Julia and Ellen. It's beat me up, Scotty, like Bill Shatner said all those years ago. And now he's really going
did
into
it for
space.
6.5 minutes.
That's
I
right.
didn't press the thing. It pulled me. So
So Rabbi, I'm going to mute everybody again, so you'll need to unmute.
Oh, that's why I was muted. Thank you. Okay. So, at least judging by the breakout rooms I went to, I think they could be a little bit longer, but we'll see. So, what kinds of things came up in your rooms? What Jewish values? Why are we observing these things today? Talk to me about some of the things that came up. And the last room I was in, one of the things that was mentioned was that in these fast days, all of the fasts that we have talked about here, many people have the custom of fasting only until the earliest time for mincha, for the afternoon service. And then immediately after the afternoon service, which if you're in the summertime could be 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you break your fast. So think about, as we're all talking also, why would some people have that custom of breaking the fast early for these fasts that we've talked about here? Okay.
Just go ahead and unmute if you have a comment.
Well, it's a minor holiday. It's not like Yom Kippur.
Right.
The minor
And also, I don't know,
or go ahead.
are people working on the minor fast days? Are they engaged in business and commerce? So they have to get through their business day. I'm guessing it's a pragmatic matter.
Okay.
Also, maybe not to take the importance away or the significance away from Yom Kippur. You know, that's the fast day,
Wow, that's
above all other fast days.
I never thought. No, that's a really interesting idea. It's amazing how popular Yom Kippur is. Because I both live and work on campus at the American Jewish University here in Los Angeles, I'm really frequently on Beit Deans for conversion. I'm pretty much a regular member of the Beit Din here. And it surprised me how many people said Yom Kippur was their favorite holiday, and has really forced me to rethink my entire relationship to Yom Kippur, which used to be, I'm so hungry. And I used to feel I was nagging God, right? Like this 25-hour Jews all over the world, I felt like kind of poor God, right? But I really had to rethink it. Okay, anyway, back to our holidays. Talk to me about the historical events behind the minor fast days and Tisha B'Av, which is not a minor fast day at all. That's a 25-hour fast like Yom Kippur is. So why why would we break the fast part of the way through? Oh, do I call on people?
Either way, Faye, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to make a point that these fasts that we're talking about, other than Tisha B'Av, I think the majority of Jewish people don't know much about them. At least I didn't. I'll tell you how I learned about them. I learned about them when I had to say Kaddish and started going to Minyan every day. And at the Minyan I attend, after the Minyan, we always have breakfast. So of course, the day after Rosh Hashanah, we come to Minyan and oh, there's no breakfast today. It's a fast day. So I really learned about these different fasts from going to Minyan. I don't remember in my Hebrew school education and really talking about the fast of Gedalia or
probably not.
Tevet.
Yeah.
So.
I'll share with you that my family, my brother went to Hebrew school, but my parents would never have sent a daughter to Hebrew school. And my brother was bar mitzvah, but they would never have, they would never have encouraged their daughter to become bat mitzvah. So I don't have a personal Hebrew school experience, but I think you're right.
Sabina, did you have something? Okay.
But I know the group I was in, which I can't remember, was it group 3? You talked about this. So what are these fasts really, what's the tragedy? What's the tragedy behind the fast? And what is it? Why today might we say, okay, fast until the earliest time for the afternoon prayer, but then right after the afternoon prayer, which again in the summertime could be 1 o'clock, break your fast. Why would we turn from one to the other sort of partway through today? What's different? Ruth?
The difference is now that we have Jerusalem and we're allowed to go to the Western Wall.
That's right.
And most of the fast days have to do with the destruction and the different things with Jerusalem. And
Good.
that's why now people say you don't have to. I mean, Tisha B'Av also commemorates so many other tragedies in our lives, in our historical lives, that
right.
It's different. But the other ones have all to do with Jerusalem. So it's how you feel about whether you want to commemorate those for.
But Tisha B'Av also commemorates the destruction of the temple.
I know, but there's 5 other things that happened on Tisha B'Av.
Good. So why might we also break our fast early on Tisha B'Av? By the way, breaking the fast early is a custom some people have and some communities have. But not everybody. But then there's almost nothing that everybody, right? We have that joke that, right, when we talk about God in Judaism, right, the one thing we all agree is that there is at most one God, right? So it's hard to get everybody to agree on something. So, but there are people who have this custom of breaking the fast early.
Why fast then?
Good, why fast? That's a great, you tell me, what's the value of fasting?
Sharon had a lot to say about it.
Lillian?
Personal sacrifice, maybe?
Okay, and you're muted.
Why I'm muted?
Why, and so why is personal sacrifice good?
cleanses you. Makes you
Okay.
supple.
Are we kind of doing our own sacrifice, since obviously Jews were well, there was loss of life. I'm guessing like on Yom Kippur, I understand that we abstain from all the things, which is, we're kind of corpse-like, right? We abstain from all the things that make us fully human, eating and drinking and marital relations and adorning ourselves with makeup and perfume and leather shoes. So this is like the antithesis. This is the opposite of that. Fasting too, deprived, like we're not living, we're not joyous, we're not living, we're like denying ourselves.
But hopefully if you're fasting, you're reminding yourself of history. And if you have other people around you, you're explaining to them, I'm fasting on Tzom Gedalia because it's a time when Jews rose up and murdered other Jews. And that's historically, that's never done us any good, right? It's not just a fast, but it's a fast in which we remember our history and hopefully try to move beyond it, right? Remembering with the idea of, as Strassfeld said, not going in a circle, right? Not repeating, but traveling on. Yes, we did these things. Yes, we suffered these things. And what can we do now?
Well, one of the things that was brought up early when we first started was holidays as an opportunity for rest and retreat from the world. And fast isn't a holiday, but I definitely find myself during fast days doing that. And sometimes as you let go of the material things, it enables you to focus more on the spiritual. And so there's that. One thing I heard about the fast days, and in particular Tisha B'Av, is we get to see Tisha B'Av. We talk about the list of tragedies that happened on that day, and we're able to see that we've survived, and in ways we're stronger because of it. We have that whole thing about never again.
Good. I like that.
And Kay put in the comments, I've heard we fast on Yom Kippur to imitate the angels. Fasting's distracting at first, but it provides clarity once you let go of the hunger.
If you can, I agree. I agree.
It's definitely an exercise in mindfulness.
So let's talk a little about Tu B'Shvat, right? The New Year of the Trees. And I mean, this is just like it's a great holiday for everybody, I think. So what kinds of values came up in your conversation when you looked at this holiday?
Appreciation for our world and our environment, and to take care of our world by renewing it and planting trees so that life can go on. It's sort of a cycle, a life cycle.
Good. So life cycle, that we are custodians of the world.
And we're doing something positive.
Yes, we're doing something positive. And what is that Honi story, right? The story of the man who he plants a carob tree, even though he knows he won't live to see the fruit of the tree.
We brought this up in our group. It's kind of Lador Vador that in addition to stewarding the earth, that we're making sure that our children and grandchildren and their progeny have the 7 species of trees that they have because somebody planted before us. So it's the original Earth Day. It's gratitude, and it's Lador Vador in a sense.
Good. And gratitude is, I think, as you know, that's it's a human value and a Jewish value as well.
Anita, you had your hand up? Unmute.
Okay, I was going to say global warming, but Marlene I think she was in my group, stated it more perfectly. But it had to do with global warming.
So that okay, but when you say that, may I assume that this holiday then spurs action?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. That it's not just saying, I mean, you know, gratitude is a huge
if
thing.
you compared it to the current day situation, I could compare it to global warming.
Meaning
that the planting of the trees and such. I mean, it's logically global warming.
Good. So having a holiday like Tu B'Shvat, you know, as somebody mentioned in one of the groups I was in, there's a really lovely custom of having a Seder for Tu B'Shvat, in which you eat different fruits and nuts. And you can even drink a different kind of wine, right? You celebrate the seasons, and for each season, you drink a different kind of wine. And all of these holidays, all of these observances, hopefully, spur us also to action, as Sabina said.
No, as Anita.
Or Anita, yes, Sabina has a question too.
Give me,
Okay,
Anita, I apologize.
I don't think, I just wanted to, maybe my sister might get annoyed with me. I don't think, it's not it's the Tu B'Shvat isn't, current day could be in response to the problem of global warming. And in response, we're planting more, we're recycling more, we're doing things to hopefully prevent what the global warming problem is going to be if we don't take action. And one of those taking action is by planting and conserving and just becoming more aware of our environment and celebrating our environment and being respectful of nature and our environment.
I agree with you completely.
Good. I'm glad everybody agrees then. It's also a great time to teach the Jewish value, which I'm going to put in the chat, of Bal Tashchit, Bal Tashchit, Bal Tashchit, which means don't be wasteful, right? So it's a good time. Someone mentioned, I can't remember who, recycling, stuff like that, right? We try not to be wasteful of God's earth. Okay, I'd like to move on. Somebody posted in the chat, which is really a great question. Why don't we fast on Yom HaShoah? We remember the Holocaust. We recite special prayers. We light candles for the people who were murdered. Why don't we fast on that day?
Because isn't Tisha B'Av supposed to be the fast day for it also?
Yes, that is definitely one answer.
I was wondering on that. I've heard that it has to do with the fact that it's in
it's in the Omer. Isn't that it? You're not allowed to fast in the Omer? Maybe?
The month it's in is supposed to be a joyous one. And so we're not supposed to be doing things like fasting or mourning then. And so I don't understand. I know there's a reason why we have Yom HaShoah in the month. Is it in the month of Nisan? And I know there's a reason, behind it, but still, I'm wondering why they might not have done it in a different month so that it did not interfere with, the joy of that month.
I don't know if I could take it if we fasted on that day. I actually think it's a really practical. I don't know, and I don't know if it was considered. I mean, it's a great question, and I am a research librarian. I'll do some research on that. I don't know if it was considered ever.
Is it possible, Rabbi, that because many of the Jews' lives were lost because of starvation, among other issues, that to do anything that looked like we had the free will of choice to take away food from ourselves when we're so upset about it anyway? I mean, we're mourning the loss of the lives from, that it just seems like counterproductive or wrong. It just doesn't make sense.
I agree with you. It feels wrong to me also to think of fasting on that day. And I mean, we don't fast on a yard site, right? Which, as many of you, I hope none of you know, but many of you do know, and the rest of you will know, if you live long enough and love well enough, you're going to have lots of yard sites to observe in your life. And, and those are not we remember people we've lost, but we don't fast, right? We don't fast. As I said, I'm not sure I could take Yom HaShoah if we also had to fast. The emotion is it's so intense without any help from fasting. Oh, I see a hand. Lillian?
Oh, it is I. Perhaps we don't fast on Yom HaShoah because this is a modern day holiday. This does not have biblical roots.
Good. We're certainly not commanded to fast on Yom HaShoah.
Lillian, you're muted.
Oh, okay. On the other hand, by the way, we're not commanded to light Hanukkah lights either, and yet we do. And we say the prayer that Asher Kichanu b'mitzvotav vitzivanu, right? Lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah. You show me where we're commanded by God. That's rabbinic, right? The rabbis decided that. I love the rabbis. I teach Talmud, by the way, and I love it. And I know we're not in Hanukkah yet, but that just popped into my head, so I thought we'd share it. Okay, I think I'm ready for.
Are you saying rabbinic law?
Yeah.
Is a commandment?
The rabbis instituted that we should say that blessing and light our Hanukkah lights. Yes, our Hanukkah lamps, or in their day. Okay, so are we ready to move on? How are we doing? We should move on, I think, for time. Yes. Okay, Ellen and Julie are both nodding. So on to Purim.
With the same questions, right?
Same questions. Historical event, if any. Jewish value. Why observe it today? What does it do for us today?
Hang on 1 minute. I'm going to give a little bit more time.
Okay.
In each room. Okay, here we go. You're muted, Rabbi.
Just giving them a few minutes without me to,
That's fine. It's fine.
So are we doing okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they really do like the breakout rooms, although I don't know, the one I popped into says, oh, we've just been talking about Bubba mices.
Oh, no.
That's okay too.
It is, you know, it gives people a chance to get to know each other. And
Right.
we really
And for
need,
people that have never met each other in person,
that's right.
many of them.
Yeah. And it's something that in our introduction to Judaism classes, I miss so much. You know, I still try to encourage my students to get together, to meet each other at synagogue or to meet me at synagogue. But it's different than being right there with somebody. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, did we tell them they were on Purim now? I don't even remember.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
We said Purim.
Okay. Well, they're enthusiastic, which is great. It's a really nice group.
We just did an amazing program with Gary Rosenthal, the artist, where we basically made our own glass that he will fuse for Hanukkah, and then we'll get together during Hanukkah, and he'll ship them back. He'll ship us back the finished product, and we'll all light them together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Part of his pink ribbon project. So all of the glass was pink and white that we put together.
Wow. So are people close enough together to do that?
No, he shipped us the kits, each person individually, and we were on Zoom, and he talked about Rabbi Sella talked about Hidur Mitzvah, and he talked about his art and his program, and then he explained how to basically you glued these tiles down, in a template glass that he sent, and mail it back to him, and then he'll fuse it and mount it to the metal.
Wow. And so you get together on Zoom to light. Wow.
Right. Then we'll get together on Zoom when they're done. Hopefully they'll all be back in time.
Wow. Nice. Okay, I'm going to pop into some.
Okay, yeah, I guess I will too. Let me see where Ellen is. She's in room 4.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go to 5.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed listening to you all. I must say I'm impressed. I really am impressed. Okay, so for those of you who took the time to read the story about the hat, I don't want to ignore that. So, so I will ask the question from our lesson plan. What do you think our heightened awareness on Purim about the masks we wear, or in the case of that story, the hats we wear? What do you think that teaches us?
I think that what we discussed in our group, I looked up Dr. Google and found some interesting facts, or Rabbi Google. And you know, when we dress in costume, we're hiding who we really are. So with a hat or any costume, we're incognito, but we're not being our true selves. And Julia, you made us think when you came into the room, and it was very interesting what we found out about the names of Haman's 10 sons.
Oh, you can't just leave it there.
Yeah, you need to share.
Stay tuned, stay tuned.
Oh, Sandy. You're going to leave us hanging like that?
You want me? I didn't know that he had 10 sons. And each son's name corresponds with a negative behavior. And, you know, we all have that Yetzer Hara. We are capable of doing bad things, you know, the evil inclination. And each of the sons had an evil inclination. And I suggest that you go and look it up. It's very, very interesting. You know, I only thought he had 2, but here it says 10. And Rabbi Mordechai Sassoon in his Sefer explains that Haman symbolizes the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and his 10 sons allude to its 10 bad character traits. Their death, brought about Mordechai and Esther, represents the nullification of such evil traits by being overpowered by the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination. He goes through the 10 sons and explains the meaning of each name and how each corresponds to a particular type of evil.
Okay, so I'm going to push a little bit on this, and I'm directing this question to everybody. The book of Esther, which we read on Purim, tells us that Haman and his 10 sons were hanged. Why would we need to find an evil thing associated with each son? That's not in the book of Esther in the Bible. It just says his 10 sons were hanged, and it does give their names.
To justify the hanging?
Who
Maybe?
said that? Well, yeah.
You're not hanging just because it's, you know, they to justify why did they deserve to be hung?
Right.
You know?
So it's, you know, it's definitely a biblical thing that, you know, the assumption is if the father deserves to be hanged, the sons probably do too. But it's interesting. That's a really an interesting, I had not heard that. And I actually will go and look it up now. So I really want to thank you for that. Okay, so before we go into the values, et cetera here, so somebody who did, well, let me ask this. Will somebody who received the short thing I sent about Purim and actually printed it out, could I get you to read just the very last thing about drinking? It's a story from Megillah in the Talmud.
Rava said, a person is obligated to become drunk on Purim until he doesn't know the difference between may Haman be cursed and may Mordechai be blessed. Rabbah and Rabbi Zera made the Purim Suda feast together. They got drunk. Rabbi got up and he slaughtered Rabbi Zera. The next day, he prayed and he revived him. The next year, Rabbah said to Rabbi Zera, come, sir, and we'll make the Purim Suda feast together. He, Rabbi Zera, said to him, miracles don't happen every day.
Right. So I sent you this story because I know that a lot of us in the various contexts of our lives deal with people who will say to us, but wait, it says right in the Talmud that one of the rabbis of the Talmud said a person is obligated to become so drunk on Purim that he doesn't know the difference between Haman and Mordechai, right? And by the way, there's another version in which a person doesn't know the difference between Esther and Zeresh, Haman's wife. But here's a story in the same Talmud, in the same part of the Talmud. And what is this story telling you, right? Two rabbis get together for the Purim, the festive meal of Purim. They get drunk. One of them slaughters the other, and it actually uses the verb shecht, right? Like rituals, like you would slaughter an animal. It's the same verb. So one of them truly slaughters the other because he's such a powerful rabbi of the Talmud, not of today. He is able to pray and bring his friend back to life. And then he says, the next year, he says, oh, hey, you want to come by for Purim again, you know? And meanwhile, his friend is wearing a turtleneck, you know, to hide the scar. And he says, miracles don't happen every day, right? So
I was wondering, you have the obligation to become drunk until you don't know the difference between,
you do not have the obligation.
It says you're a person, oh, Rava said, but you know, is there a line between doing this and doing harm to yourself? And is that what we're supposed to be wary of?
I think we definitely have to be wary of that. And, you know, especially if you're teaching young people, this is a great story. You know, that's not to say you can't have a little bit, but right, you want to be careful. You could harm yourself. You could certainly harm other people. But I just love in this story, you have to love the rabbis of the Talmud. You know, I mean, he slaughters the guy, and then the next year he's like, oh, hey, what you doing for Purim? You know, pencil me in. Okay.
I have a question. Was that story in the printouts that we were supposed to print out? Because I printed everything out and I'm not finding it. I would have liked to have read that story.
It's in the handout Julia sent today.
I printed everything out.
It came today.
You did something today.
Oh.
It was today.
So you can still print it out.
Okay, I printed out prior to today. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Do you all have my email? Because you're welcome to, you know, I'm going to put it in the chat. But you know, you're certainly.
It's at the bottom of the handout.
Oh, good.
It says, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but back to the questions I actually asked you. So, so what are some of the values you take from Purim? I mean, you know, yes, it's a big party, but what else? What does it teach us? It's got to be more than a party for us to do it year after year.
Well, we talk about the hiding, but then afterwards we disclose ourselves. So shouldn't that be part of the value too? But I do like what you said about heightened awareness of the mask we wear.
Okay, good.
It's also bravery and thought. Being very thoughtful, thinking what's best. When Esther's trying to decide what to do, she was very brave. She went up to the king and he could have killed her. But she was thoughtful. She thought how she was going to do it. And she went about it very methodically.
Nice. Nice. It does, between Vashti and Esther, it gives us some different images of how women, and I believe that this is true even today, you know, part of our power, so to speak, is in our being women, right? I mean, in our different body from men. And it's interesting to see the different ways that plays out in the Purim story. Yeah, thank you.
I saw a discussion about that on how the difference between Vashti and Esther. Vashti showed her feminism by rebelling against the system openly, whereas Esther used her feminism to work within the system to get change.
Yeah.
In two different ways that people can go about it, and you see which one works better.
Mm-hmm. Good. So what else? What other values did you talk about?
I think that it's important not to forget the fact that God is with us, you know, no matter the centuries, the years, the times, he's with us. And so we win. And to stay focused in that success that we have someone that is with us to be able to get us through situations, you know? And so that's
good.
Probably one of the most important lessons in Purim story.
I like that. And talking about being hidden, being concealed, or being revealed, right? God is actually not mentioned in the book of Esther. So God is really behind the scenes, so to speak, of the action. Good, good.
Dana?
Yeah, I think that another thing which I never learned when I was younger, but certainly in recent years, the concept of who Vashti was and how she had dignity and made decisions that would protect herself, even though she got banished, but she had strength. And I think that we have to recognize the issues that women have faced and still face.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Rabbi, we're down to about 14, 13 minutes. Do you want to get into Hanukkah just right here without going into a breakout room?
Sure. I do want to say one more thing, if I may, about Purim. And that came up in one of the, Jamie, you mentioned something that really touched on this. One of the major things we can learn from Purim and that can spur us to action, in addition to giving gifts to the poor, right? That's a value of Purim. And I did hear in one of the groups, somebody say our responsibility to the poor. But also, Purim teaches us that we have the right to be different, that every human being has the right to be different. If you look at chapter 3 in the book of Esther, Haman says to the king, when he's starting to make trouble, he says, "There's a people scattered in your kingdom, and they're different. They're different from everybody else. It is of no benefit to the king to tolerate them." That's how Haman causes trouble. It's chapter 3, verses 8 and 9 in the book of Esther. This teaches us our victory in the book of Esther teaches us that everyone has the right to be different, and that we as Jews have to act to protect that right, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. So I feel that it's something I learned from one of my own teachers, Rabbi Mervyn Tomsky, who really, really taught me that about Purim and changed my whole outlook on the holiday. Okay, let's talk about Hanukkah together. Then I'm trying to get to my Hanukkah place here in my lesson. So what does Hanukkah teach us? Right, one of the things it teaches us is that the rabbis took it upon themselves to make it a mitzvah to light the lamps of Hanukkah. I'm not finding my place here, but that's okay. So the text from the Talmud there, what does that add for us to the story of the Maccabees? What's Hanukkah about, in other words? Historically, what's happening?
They're rebelling again. They're rebelling.
Good. They're rebelling. Good.
Against the Greeks.
Against the Greeks. And what happens? Here we go. So in Maccabees, right, we read that the Jews rebelled against the Greeks, and they were able to kick the Greeks, temporarily anyway, out of the temple. And they restore the temple. And then what do the rabbis add?
I think going back to what you said before, that has a lot to do with what's going on today. The Greeks weren't trying to conquer, they were trying to get us to assimilate.
Good.
And there were those that fought for religious freedom. But as far as what's added later you were talking about, that would be the miracle of the oil. That's
right. So in the original story, the miracle of the oil doesn't exist. The rabbis add that, right? That when they went into the temple, they find one little bottle. It should only have lasted a day, but it lasted 8 days. And therefore we observe this every year. But I want to go back just quickly, because Sharon, I think you hit on one of the biggest values we learn about in the holiday of Hanukkah. And that is the value of religious freedom, right? The Maccabees were fighting for religious freedom. And again, that's not just for us, but for everybody.
That's true. Why I liked you added that question about should we use it as a replacement or to compete with Christmas? And from reading, absolutely not. We should not try to equate them from, I feel strongly now that I've seen what you said, and I'm glad you said it.
Okay, so that wasn't me. That was the really brilliant minds of Women's League who wrote that. I can't take credit for that. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about two things. We can talk about Hanukkah, Christmas. We can also ask why. So we had this story of a military victory. Why do the rabbis add the miracle of the oil?
Showing God's involvement.
Good. Showing God's involvement. And as somebody who also teaches young people, Jamie, what else does that do? Right? It takes the focus off the fact that a little group of Jews won a military victory against the big bad Syrian Greeks. And the rabbis saw a danger there that young people might get the message from that they could do that as well. And that was dangerous. So the miracle of the oil shifts the focus of Hanukkah from a military victory to, in a sense, God's victory.
A religious miracle.
Sorry?
A religious miracle.
A religious miracle, yes. But always underneath this is religious freedom for us, for everybody. Okay, now I'm perfectly happy to talk about Christmas, Hanukkah.
Can I ask a question or bring up what? Because you
Always.
talk about religious freedom, but we were talking about it being an issue of assimilation. And it's not that the Greeks were not letting people be Jewish, but that they were encouraging people to be Greek. And in today's day, what I'm concerned about is the religious extremism, because I look at what's happening in Israel and what's happening with women at the wall, and the fact that the ultra-Orthodox there are extreme in their beliefs and don't believe that we practice real Judaism and negate us. So I have issues with that.
I do as well. But that also is religious freedom, right?
Well, the thing is, they're not allowing us to have our religious freedom.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm not saying these values have, I mean, the reason we need these holidays over and over and over, in addition to those reasons of, you know, commemorating the events of our life, but also to remind us, to remind us about the values that they teach us. And Hanukkah does teach us about religious freedom. That can be between religions. It can be within religions.
So
yes.
One of the things I get from Hanukkah is an opportunity to be Jewish. And if there's a card to be played against Christmas, is here we have something that helps us connect with our Jewish values in a time of year that is just indoctrinated with, you know, Jesus Christ, and allows us to grasp on something Jewish as opposed to being distracted by all the holiday commercialization.
Okay, good. So it does, especially if you make it special within your home and within your community, it can be a force against assimilating, right, to the majority culture, which is represented by Christmas.
Now, couldn't the focus on gift giving, I know when I was raised, that was, you know, that's what Hanukkah was, gifts and latkes. But so, and I don't know how many other people have that experience, but couldn't the focus on gift giving as a competition to Christmas be a distraction from what the holiday is all about?
I'd love to get other opinions, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump in and say, I think it would be, I don't know. I think, yes.
So I have a little one.
Okay.
And, you know, children go through stages of learning. You can't sit there and teach a Talmud to a 7-year-old.
No.
But you can make them aware there's a holiday called Hanukkah. You can make them aware that there's, you know, menorah, the light, and it's a joyful thing. And then next year they learn a little bit more, a little bit more. So I look at it as, you know, the gift giving is kind of an introduction, because truthfully, in a couple of years, then we really care about the gifts. So focus on the holiday joyfulness and the latkes and the family get together.
The example of my own family, my parents gave us tiny gifts, but they gave us a gift every night. And every night they would say to us, I mean, like a gift that cost 50 cents. I mean, something quite small. They didn't have a lot, and every night they would say to us, you get gifts for 8 nights and the kids next door only get gifts 1 day. So, you know, that was one way of doing it. And we decorated the inside of the house. So I'm terribly sorry. I really want to continue our conversation, but I know we're up against the clock and it's much later for you than it is for me. Like, I'm wide awake, but it's late. If I were you, I'd be asleep, honestly. So
I know.
I do want to leave you with a question, and that is, after what we've learned together, do you feel inspired now to maybe try one of the holidays that you haven't tried before? And and I really want to thank you. For me, this has been a huge treat and a real gift from you. So I want to thank you for letting me join you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It's interesting. Your story about not having a bat mitzvah is very similar to our first meeting, where a lot of people talked about either not having one, or it wasn't, you know, in their family's value system for girls, very similar to what you're writing. Or some of us had it and it was just kind of thrown in on a Friday night. We got just a little bit to do, or whatever, you know. So, you know, thank you. You really enhanced a lot of our reasons for being here as well. We very much appreciated it this evening. Thank you. Feel free to join us anytime.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could stay on for a couple of minutes at the end, that would be great.
Yeah.
And for everybody else, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Please, it's really important that you come to every class. You know, we realize they're recorded, but it doesn't record the breakout sessions. You would miss all that time sharing and learning together. So it's really important that you come to each of the classes.
It's fun to interact too.
Right.
I enjoy that.
Julia, when is the next class? Because on the 11th of November, there's a Women's League Reads.
Right. It's the 18th in November.
Oh, it is the 18th. Okay.
It's not always the same Thursday. We tried, but so it'll be November 18th, and we're going to be talking about tzedakah and social justice.
So, you know, a different kind of discussion. And right now we are scheduled to have Rabbi Stephanie Roske. So she will be the next teacher, you know, and just, we really, you know, have had this wonderful experience of hearing from, you know, wonderful women in our movement. So we thank you, really.
Thank you. And I just checked, there is no reading in the textbooks for that, but I will be sending out handouts for that class again, and please read them and print them out for the class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks.